right, here we go. So in this video, we are going to uh, do these projects. So there was an assignment that I gave to kind of put some practice into what we covered yesterday with functions, because I know there was a lot of lecture. I don't particularly like to do all that lecturing, believe it or not. I don't like talking. I really don't. But I have to. Anyways, um, so we did some projects, four mini projects to reinforce functions and how we use them. So let's I'm going to share my screen. And so here's what we have here. So and let me make this text just a little bit larger. Okay, so the first challenge that we have is to write a function that will take an array of numbers and will console the square root of each number. Then, if the squared result is less than 10, store it in an array called 10 below. Okay, so we've already done this, but we're just adding a function to it. And what we want to do with this function is we want to make this dynamic so it will take any array of numbers. Okay, so um, that's what we're going to do. And I'm not going to do all the testing I could, but I'm not going to worry about all that because, in other words, I'm not going to say, hey, let's loop through this array and test each one and make sure that it is a number. And if it's not a number, then kick it out. I'm not going to do all that. We're just, because the function is assuming that the array that you get in is a list of numbers. All right, so here we go. I'm just going to call this function square the numbers. That's just the name I gave it. You can call it whatever you want to. Again, it's your function, however you choose to name it. That's up to you. This function is going to take in an array as an argument because, again, I want this function to be able to take any array and any array of numbers and then, complete this task. So I want to start off with creating my empty array 10 below. So I'm going to do that first. I'm going to say var 10 or below gets an empty array. Okay. And now this part is going to look just like the previous challenge that we did. So I need to take whatever this array is. So I'm going to say array.forEach. And I'll just take each item in the array. I'll just call it item. Again, this is just naming the contents of the array. So I'm naming mine item. If you named yours numbers or what have you, or each number, that's up to you as well. But I'm taking each item. Okay. And we got to do some stuff to this. Okay. So we're going to take each item. And again, we're going to square that value. So I'm going to say var squared num gets math.root of item. So that is going to square the number and store it in something that we call squared num. Then I want to console.log squared num. So I want to do that because that's what we want to do. We want to console the square root of each number. Okay. And then I'm going to say if the squared result is less than 10, or I have less than 10, that should be less than or equal to 10. I'll change that because that's what we had before. I just wanted to do the same thing. So if the square root result is less than or equal to 10, store it in an array named 10 below. Okay, so again, this is still happening inside of this for each loop. All right, all this is happening inside the for each loop. I'm going to say if square num less than equal to 10, then I'll just put this on the same line. I'll say 10 or below dot push, and we're going to push square num. All right, and that's going to do that. And then what I want to do here is, because we need to console it to test it and make sure that it worked, so I'm going to say console.log 10 or below. So I'm going to console 10 or below so that we can see that it in fact did push the numbers into the array, and then return. Okay, and that's it. And this return statement is just saying, hey, just in the function. Now I could have said return console.log 10 or below if I wanted to, but I'm not going to. That doesn't matter. I just did it this way. And again, always remember that what I'm showing you is a way, not the way. Okay. So now let's test this and see if this works. I'm going to say square the numbers. I'm going to call this function, and in this function, I'm going to put this array 256, 16, and 9. I'm going to test that and see if that works. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to test it. I'm going to create an array right here. So I'm going to say array of numbers. And the numbers I chose are 2, 81, 100, 64, 1, and 169. Now, I also could have said, hey, make sure that these numbers are positive numbers. Again, I could have done that, but I'm assuming that these numbers are positive. They don't have to be perfect squares, as you can see. They do need to be positive. Okay, and so now I'm going to run this function, square the numbers, and pass in array of numbers. Okay, so let's see if this works. So right here, I should get, what's that, 256, that's 16, 4, and 3, and then 10 or below should be 4 and 3. This bad boy right here, array of numbers, this should be, what's that, 1.411, something like that. I forget. 9, 10, 8, 1, and that should be 13. And then the array should be that 1.411, whatever. 9, 10, 8, and 1. Oh, that should be right here. So let me cut that out and paste it right over here. That's what I should get right there. All right, going live. And here we go. Open up that console. When I get it, what's this? I'm gonna refresh that. Yeah, there we go. And there it is. Oh, 1.414. All right. So yes, success. So the first one, 16, 4, and 3. Cool. And then 1.414, then 9, 10. All right, cool. So that worked. Okay. Again, if you did not do it this way, that's all right. Okay. If you got it to work, that's what's important. So yours may look a little different from mine. Certainly your naming may be different from mine. But if your function works, that's what's important. Okay. That is what is important. All right. So what's next? The next one is the temp converter. We love our temp converters. Oh my goodness. All right, so we're going to write a function that will take a temperature and a unit of measurement, like far cell as an argument. If the unit is Fahrenheit, we'll convert the temperature to Celsius. If the temp is Celsius, convert the temperature to Fahrenheit. Okay, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to start off with the function name. So I'm going to say function. I'm going to call it temp converter. Again, you can name it what you want, but your name should say like what this thing is, what it's doing. Okay, so it says we'll take a temperature and a unit of measurement as an argument. Okay, so I need to have these two things as my argument. So I'm gonna say temp and unit. All right, and now we need to do stuff. So what would help me is to I'm going to just have a variable called new temp, and that will act as a container regardless if the temperature I'm converting to is Fahrenheit or Celsius. Okay, because I don't have to have all these specific names for each individual thing. I can make this kind of light if I want to. So I'm going to say var new temp. Not going to give it anything yet. It's just going to be var new temp. Okay, and so now all I need to do is just write my my else if statement, because what I want to do is say, hey, if the unit is Fahrenheit, run this formula. Else if the unit is Celsius, then do this other number. And then what I'm going to do is say, hey, if anything other than that, if it's not Fahrenheit or Celsius, then send some kind of error. Okay. So I'm going to say, hey, if unit is equal to, and I just type in as a string fa, then what are we going to do? New temp is going to get, and then the formula was at temp minus 32, and that's what times 5/9. All right. And then I can say else if the unit is equal to Celsius, in which case we're going to convert it to Fahrenheit right here. So now I'll say new temp is going to get temp times, I like to open my parentheses, 9/5, come out there, plus 32. So this will convert it to Fahrenheit. And then if neither one of those, if temp is not if unit is not or unit is not cell, then what I can do right here is I can say new temp is going to get error. And I do that because, again, new temp is a container. Yes, it should represent the temperature, but if it's not Fahrenheit, if the unit is not Fahrenheit or the unit is not cell, then I just wanted to, I want error, the string error, to be new temp. Okay. And that's it. Now I need a console.log and then return. And that's the function. And what I'm also going to do with this, that's what I wanted to do, is I'm going to set a temperature right here as my default, and currently at 9:22 in the morning on October 3rd. Good Lord, why? For no reason. These needs to be 70 degrees in October, 9:22 in the morning. Okay, so let's test this out. I'm going to say temp converter. I'm going to give 100 degrees and then Celsius. And then I'll say temp converter 86 and Fahrenheit, and then I'll test the undefined, just do with the default default temperature. So temp converter undefined, and change that to let's say the units Fahrenheit. All right, and so when I do that, 212, good. So I know that works. I always like to test 100 degrees Celsius, 212 degrees Fahrenheit, because I know those, and 0 degrees Celsius, 32 Fahrenheit, because I know those in particular. And so, yes, that works. Cool. Cool, cool, cool. All right. And again, if you didn't get this, you can look and see, check and see where your logic is, where it's different from mine, and why you didn't get it. Also, if you did get it, you were able to solve it, but you wrote it different than the way that I did. That's also, again, that's also fine. So there we go. All right, moving right along. Positive or negative. So we want to write a function that will log whether an integer is positive or negative, and let's not forget about 0. Okay, so essentially you can see we're doing the same thing that we did before, the same challenges. It's just that we're storing it inside of a function so that, again, we can make it more dynamic, one, and then we can call that function whenever we want to. All right. So here we go. Function positive or negative. And it's going to take a number as an argument. All right. And I'm kind of the same thing I did with my temp converter, where I have this var new temp. I'm going to say var result. Okay. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to just basically do the same thing that we did in the challenge before. I'm going to say, hey, if here I want to check type of num, make sure that it's equal to number. So if this is an number that we're passing in, and I'm going to say, hey, well, if the num is equal to 0, then I'll just say result will get 0. Else if the num is greater than 0, and if it is, I know that to be positive, so I'll say result gets positive. And if it's not 0 and it's not 0, then I can just say else result gets negative. Because those only two things, well, only 3 instances that we have, right, with numbers. It's either going to be 0, it's going to be positive, or it's going to be negative. And there's no anything else when it comes to numbers. So here we go. So that works. All right. And then I can say else right here, meaning that type of num is not number. Then I could say result will get invalid input, must be a number. All right, cool. And we'll console.log results just to make sure that it works. And then we return. And that's it. Yet again. Okay, and so let's test it. Positive or negative, I'll start with 0. Positive or negative, I'll try negative 18. Try out the number 7. And I'll do foo, because I want to check and see what happens. We pass in a string. So I should get 0, negative, positive, and then invalid input. 0, negative, positive, invalid input. Whew. But you already know, and test what you have and what I have. Also, if you're watching this on YouTube and you write it differently, go ahead and share it in the comments. Share the way you wrote this differently, so that I can see, and that other people can see as well, because coding doesn't just belong to you, right? We're not just hoarding it. It's to be shared, right? All right, last one. And I think I kind of, it doesn't look like I deviated from this challenge, right? From the instructions a little bit, but I think I got it. Okay, so here we go. We got rock, paper, scissors. We're going to write a function that will randomly select two choices, a player 1 and player 2, between rock, paper, scissors. From the selection, the program should determine the winner, either player 1 or player 2, and log the winner to the console. So here we go, rock, paper, scissors. And I think most of us know how the game goes. Rock beats scissors. Scissors beats paper. Paper beats rock, right? Because rock beats the scissors. Scissors beats the paper. Paper beats the rock. So that's what we got to do. So this one might be a little challenging, especially if you're very new. But we're going to do, we're going to basically employ just about everything that we've learned so far. So here we're going to put all these different pieces together to build something. Okay. So let's start off. I'm going to say function, rock, paper, and scissors. And I'm just going to run this function without an argument. Maybe I can try to add an argument in here, and I think I know how I would do that. But right now I'm just going to leave it as is. Okay, so check. Oh, there's one thing. There definitely one new thing that we're going to cover in this challenge right here. I haven't covered this yet, but you're going to see how this works, and I think it's pretty cool right here. And by the way, like these challenges, well, this one in particular, this is one I just came up with on my own. A lot of times I do that. I will just think of something that we can build. Like, hey, this would be great. This could teach these things, and go out there and build it. So a lot of times, like this right here in particular, is rock, paper, scissors. My very first time building it. Haven't done it before. Haven't even thought about it. But here we go. So what I'm going to do first is, like we did with result and new temp, I'm going to have this container right here that's going to have a message, and I'm going to call it winner. But what I'm going to do with winner, watch this. I'm going to set this to rock, paper, scissors, and when we say shoot, I'm going to set it to that, okay? And you'll see why. All right. And then what I'm going to do is, I made an array that I called hands. I didn't know what to call it. But here, hands, and in the array, I got rock. Paper, if I can spell correctly, and scissors. Okay. And so what we're going to do here now is I'm going to create my players. Okay. And my players are going to receive a random item from the array. Okay, so in other words, I have a player 1 and he'll get rock, paper, scissors, and I have a player 2 and she'll get rock, paper, scissors, one or the other. Okay, so var player 1 is going to get hands, and then what I'm going to do, because again I'm pulling from this hands array randomly. Okay, so what I'm going to do is inside of the square brackets, I'm going to say math.floor open parentheses math.random times hands dot. So this is going to randomly select a rock, paper, scissors and store it into player 1. And I'm just going to copy this and paste this, and this is going to be player 2. All right. And so what I want to do right now, just to test this, see how I'm coming with this, I'm going to console.log. I'm going to say player 1 and player 2, like so. Or matter of fact, I'm going to do it like this, even. Console.log player 1 colon, put a space, plus, and add player 1, comma, and then do the same thing, player 2 colon, space, player 2. So this will, right now, what we're going to do, just test and make sure that it's randomly selecting the hands. Okay, and I'm going to go ahead and run this function now just to test, and let me also do a clear up here so the other stuff won't be in the way. Okay, and there you go. I got player 1 rock, player 2 scissors. Refresh. Player 1 scissors, player 2 paper. Cool, let's do it again. Player 1 scissors, player 2 rock, scissors paper, and there we have paper paper. So I got to account for that right there, because what happens when both of them are the same? Then we gotta do something with that, right? We know that the game doesn't just end in a tie. It's like you gotta play it again. Okay, so now that I got that working, okay, I'm gonna keep that down there. What I'm gonna do now, and this is where it got a little weird for me as I was trying to figure this out. I'm gonna create another variable right here, and I call it game hands. That's why I call it, but this is just saying, hey, what's player 1 and player 2? And so what I did was I combined the two of them like so. I said player 1 plus, and then I have the string that's just a dash in there, and I said player 2. And I'm gonna do something with this, but we'll see. We'll see what I do with this. Okay. All right. And let's see what that looks like. I will console, no. Console.log game hand. So we can see what this looks like. So you see player 1 rock, player 2 scissors, and it says rock dash rock paper, rock dash paper. Scissors, 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 scissors. Okay, cool. So let's see what we're going to do with this. All right, so now I'm ready to run my conditions, my winning conditions. And what I want to do is, first I want to say, hey, what if player 1 is equal to player 2? Like the case where we have right here. So player 1 and player 2, if they're scissors, then what do we need to do? Okay. I'm going to, I'll do this right here. And I'll say, hey, if player 1 is equal to player 2, then what I'll do is I'm going to copy this console right here. I'm just going to copy that. Matter of fact, I'm just going to move it up. I'm going to move it up in there like so. And then I'm going to add some more to this. I'm going to add another string. I'm going to say, put a period right there. And I'm going to say same play again. Like so. All right. So if they're the same, then it's going to get play again. I come over here and you see right here as it reran, and there's rock and rock, and you may have something different. You can refresh it until you get to a point where they're the same as I have here. You can see rock, rock, same, play again, and then there's rock, rock. Okay. We're going to come back to this. All right. Because we got to figure out how to get to play again. All right. So 1 is equal to player 2, console.log, player 2, and then same play again. All right. Cool. So here we go. But if they're not the same, what do I need to do? Well, then I got to figure out how to tell, who won. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to say else, and I have my else statement right here. And again, I'll console.log game hands right here. So if they're not the same, console.log game hands, I'll remove that one. So now here we can see player 1 rock, player 2 rock, same play again. Fresh, scissors, scissors, same play again. There we get rock, paper. So we can see we get one or two things that are consoled. We get either this message saying, hey, they're the same play again, or we get game hands. Okay. So if it's game hands, this is where I will test and see, hey, how we know who won or not. And there's a lot of different conditions, right? Because player 1 could have rock and player 2 could have paper. Player 1 could have rock, player 2 could have scissors, so on and so forth. And so we go down this list. And I could do that in else if, but as I mentioned before, when I have like 4 or more different conditions, then I don't want to do else if, because it gets real nasty and easy to, it makes it more difficult to read. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to use a switch instead. I'm going to say switch, and we're going to pass in game hands as our expression. This rock dash paper or paper dash scissors, or, well, it won't be paper dash paper, because if it's paper dash paper, it's going to be here. So this is going to take any condition that where the game player 1 and player 2 are not the same. So here we go. Switch game hands, and I'm going to say, hey, in the case that game hands is rock dash paper, that means that player 2 won, because player 2 is paper and paper beats rock. I'm going to say winner gets paper beats rock, and I'll say player 2 wins. And then don't forget your break. Okay. And then I can say case rock scissors. And then in this case, rock beats scissors. And then player 1 wins. And then break. And so I'm going to do that for all of the, 6 scenarios? So case paper is rock, or paper rock. And then the winner is paper beats rock. And then player one wins. Break. In the case, paper, scissors. Then the winner gets scissors beats paper. Player two wins. And then we got case, scissors, rock. And then winner will get what? Rock beats scissors. Player two wins. Break. And then case, scissors, paper. And then winner gets scissors beats paper. Player one wins. Break. And then always have a default. I'll say default. Why are you doing that? Winner will get, I'll just say error right here. Break. All right. And then we'll just console.log winner. And let's see. Yeah. We'll console.log winner. Matter of fact, I'll say return console.log winner. I think that's what I want to do. I'm gonna leave that out for right now. This may mess something up. Okay. So I have my logic in here. Okay. Let's refresh. Let's come over here and okay, so this one's a tie because player one's a rock, player two's a rock. Same. Play again. Rock, paper, scissors, shoot. Okay, and so there's my winner, as you can see here, because we started here. Winner was rock, paper, scissors, shoot. So there, I see that that message is console when I have a tie. When I refresh, scissors, paper, scissors beats paper. Player one wins. Rock, scissors. Rock beats scissors. Player one wins. We got a tie right here. For scissors, scissors beats paper. Player two wins. So you can go through and test it for each one, and you should have all of your winning conditions set. So cool. All right. But now what I want to do is I want to figure out how I can play this game again if there's a tie. Because again, if there's a tie, then they have to go again. Okay. And so how do we do that? The way that we do that is we use something that is called recursion. Okay. I know it's not my slides. Okay. But again, my slides are very limited. I don't have everything covered in the slides. But recursion is something that you look up. Okay. And recursion is when you have an instance where a function is calling itself. Because again, remember with functions, we can write them and we store them away and then they'll get called somewhere else in the code. But what happens with recursion is the function will call itself. And sometimes in a case like this, even we need to do that because here we got the game logic down, rock, paper, scissors. But what happens when there's a tie? Well, what we want to do is we want to run that function again. Okay. So so the way I'm going to do that is I'm going to right below this console of player one, player two, such and such, same play again. I'm going to run rock, paper, scissors, shoot right there inside the function. So if it's a tie, it will run again. Let's see if this works. Notice I put it. So I'm saying if player one is equal to player two, we're going to console player one, player two, same, play again, and then we're going to run the function again. All right. So let's see if this works. We got scissors, paper, scissors, piece, paper, blah, blah, blah. Rock, scissors. Okay, here we go. Player one, scissors, player two, scissors, same, play again. Scissors, and they played again. Play, same, play again. Paper, paper, play again. Scissors, scissors, play again. Paper, paper, play again. Paper, rock. And then we finally get paper beats rock. And then you see this rock, paper, scissors, shoot, rock. So it's kind of working, right? Because they did, in fact, when they're tied, they played again, okay, until we came to a place where they weren't the same, and then paper beats rock. Kind of working. All right. Let's fix something, okay? And here's something else that we're gonna look at. We're gonna put into play. We have something. There's a built-in function, if you will. I'm gonna make a little comment right here. And it is called set timeout. The set timeout method is built on is built in JavaScript, okay? And what it does, it creates a timer, if you will, for I'll say function to be executed. In other words, well, I won't say a timer. I think a better word is a delay. So we can delay something happening, okay? And that's what we're going to do here. We're going to use this delay from set timeout to work something. And this is the syntax for it, okay? Syntax. We're going to say, we just say set timeout. We call it like that. And inside of set timeout, we have a function, okay? And then comma, and then we have a time, and I put in milliseconds. So the first argument in the set timeout function is like a function, and generally we will do something that's called an anonymous function or callback function, but generally an anonymous function in there. And then the second argument is the time in milliseconds. So in other words, 1,000 milliseconds will make 1 second. 2,000 milliseconds will be 2 seconds. Okay. And so we're going to use this right here. What we'll do is we will tell, well, in set timeout, we'll say, hey, run rock, paper, scissors, but do it after a delay. Okay. So let's come back up here, and that way we won't have that issue that we had previously. So right here, I'm going to say set timeout, and I'm going to do my anonymous function. My anonymous function is just going to be open, close parentheses, and then a fat arrow, and then a curly brace like so. And then here, I will put the function rock, paper, scissors. So run right there. And then what I'll do after this curly brace, so in between the curly brace and the parentheses, I'm going to put a comma, I'm gonna set my delay for 2000 milliseconds. And so let me do this so it can be a little more readable what we're doing here. So set timeout, rock, paper, scissors, and then uh, after a 2-second delay. Now let's see what happens. Okay, I got rock, scissors. Rock beats scissors. Player one wins. Scissors, rock. Rock beats scissors. Player two wins. Scissors, rock. Same thing. Rock, scissors. Player one wins. Paper, rock. Paper beats rock. Player one. Scissors, paper. Rock, scissors. Let's get a tie. There we go. Player one, player two. And you can see the delay. And you see there's a delay until we get a winner. And now you can see it's not showing that rock, paper, scissors, shoot, rock, paper, scissors, shoot, rock, paper, scissors, shoot. We have that little delay there. And then it and then we got a winner. Or played again until we got a winner. Woo! That was fun. That was fun. And again, like I said, that was my first time building that because I just never thought to do it. And so you can see here that it's covered everything that we've done so far. And quite frankly, if I were to build this based on my skill set, I would not do it like this. I would use some other things we haven't covered yet. But I wanted to, for the most part, um, use things that we already know. Okay. And that's so that you can put your knowledge into practice. And some of you may have done some JavaScript and understand some things beyond this, and that's okay. That's good. But I wanted to build something that for someone who's just taking this course for the first time, who just now learning JavaScript, they can actually do using the things that they know. And again, with the exception of recursion and set timeout, everything else is there. Okay, so those were the challenges. I hope you enjoyed them. Try and build it again, um, just to see if you can make it work. Try to do it on your own. And yeah, and that's that on that. So on the other side of this video, I think we're going to talk about objects. I think that'll be next. And so yeah, that's going to be interesting. So catch you all on the other side.